The snow was falling hard over Winterfell, covering the broken stones and blood-soaked fields where battles had been fought and lost. But deep beyond the walls, in the cold north, where even hope seemed to freeze, 3 siblings were coming back, not just to take back their home, but to take back their name, their power, and their future. Jon Snow walked ahead, his sword loincloth strapped to his back, the wind howling in his ears. Beside him rode Arya, silent and sharp-eyed, dressed in simple black, her blade needle hidden under her cloak. Behind them, on a strong horse, rode Sansa, the Lady of Winterfell in her heart, her eyes burning with memories and pain. They had lost too much, seen too much, and now it was time. The Boltons ruled Winterfell now. Ramsay, with his smiling lies and cruel games, had taken everything from the Starks. But he didn't know what was coming. He thought the Starks were broken. He was wrong. The first campfire was small, hidden near an old weirwood tree. Jon looked at his sisters, both different, both changed, but both still Starks. Arya had stories in her silence, things she would never speak of. Sansa had pain in her eyes, things she had been forced to endure. And Jon, he had died once already. Nothing scared him anymore. "We'll need an army," Jon said, staring at the flames. "And loyalty. The North remembers, but fear is strong." "I don't care about fear," Arya replied. "Let me inside the walls. I'll end Ramsay in the dark." Sansa shook her head. "No, this is about more than just killing him. This is about showing the North that the Starks are still here. We don't sneak. We rise." The wind whispered through the trees. It felt like their father was listening. By morning, they had a plan. They traveled from house to house. The Karstarks, the Mormonts, the Hornwoods. Some doors were shut in their faces. Others gave weak smiles and empty promises. But a few still believed. Lady Lyanna Mormont, small but fierce, gave her support with fire in her voice. "The North remembers," she said, and that became their echo. Jon fought in duels to prove strength. Arya proved herself in silence, blades thrown with deadly skill, whispers in the night of Bolton men found dead. Sansa, dressed with pride, gave speeches to halls full of old men who once bowed to her father. And slowly the North began to stir. But Ramsay knew. One of his spies saw the Stark banner rising in Bear Island. Another heard rumors of Arya Stark riding with a silent face. He laughed, cruel and loud, in the halls of Winterfell. "Let them come," he said. "Let the wolves come. I'll skin them all." He sent letters, threats, lies, twisted jokes. Sansa read hers with a steady hand. "He's scared," she said simply. "He laughs too loud. He knows." Their camp outside Winterfell grew larger. Tormund came with wildlings. Davos stood beside Jon, loyal and wise. Old banners rose again. It was not just war. It was a return. Then, one night, Arya disappeared. Jon was angry. Sansa was worried. But Arya came back before dawn, her cloak wet with blood. "He's not expecting an attack tonight," she said. "His men are drunk. We strike at sunrise." Sansa looked at the sky. "Then let this be the end of him." The North was cold, but something was burning. Not fire, not hatred, but something deeper, something the Boltons could never understand. The wolves had returned. The air before dawn was colder than usual. The kind of cold that didn't just bite your skin, it crawled into your bones. But in the Stark camp, no one trembled. They were awake, silent, waiting. Warriors, wildlings, northern bannermen, even farmers with axes, all united under one thing, the Stark banner flying high in the dark. Jon stood before them, his breath clouding in front of him. "We take back what was stolen," he said, his voice low but steady. "Not just Winterfell. Our name, our honor, our justice. If we fall as wolves. But if we win, We rise again as the true blood of the North." Beside him stood Arya, quiet, her eyes scanning the tree line, already planning a dozen ways to slip into the castle's walls. Sansa stood firm, wrapped in her thick cloak, her face calm like ice, but her fingers were clenched. She had bled for this. She had suffered under that monster, Ramsay, and now it was her turn. As the first light broke over the snow-covered hills, the horn sounded. The ground began to shake with the charge of men. Arrows flew, steel clashed. Screams rose into the morning sky. Jon fought like a shadow. Ghost, his direwolf, tore through Bolton soldiers like wind through leaves. Jon met them face to face, blade to blade. He didn't fight like a knight. He fought like a man with nothing left to lose. Meanwhile, Arya had vanished into the chaos. She had slipped inside the castle walls hours ago, using the secret tunnels her father had once shown her. Ramsay's men didn't even see her coming. She moved like death in silence, slicing throats, planting fear. Her face emotionless, her heart cold. Sansa watched from a nearby hilltop, her eyes never leaving the gates of Winterfell. She had begged Jon not to risk everything in the first wave. "He'll use tricks," she warned. "He'll play games." But Jon didn't care. He was tired of games. He wanted blood. And Ramsay? Ramsay sat in the high tower, eating an apple, watching the battle unfold below him. "Let them die," he told his master. "Let the dogs feed." He thought he had control. He thought he had time. He didn't know death was already climbing the stairs. Arya stood in the hallway now, outside Ramsay's room. She could hear him laughing. She pulled off her cloak, pulled needle from its sheath. She wasn't a little girl anymore. She wasn't a Stark with dreams. She was Death, and his name was on her list. But before she opened the door, a scream echoed from the courtyard below. Jon had reached the gates. The wildlings had broken through. The Bolton banners were falling. Ramsay's army was retreating, running, begging for mercy. Ramsay looked out his window and saw Jon standing in the courtyard, covered in blood, surrounded by fallen enemies. And then he saw her Sansa, on the hill, watching him with those cold blue eyes. For the first time, Ramsay felt something he had never truly known: fear. He turned, grabbed his bow, and notched an arrow. The door burst open. Arya stood there, smiling softly. "Hello, Ramsay." He fired. She dodged. In seconds, she was on him. He screamed. Down below, Jon heard a howl. Ghost raised his head. The gates of Winterfell burst open, and Arya stepped out, blood on her face, dragging a broken, screaming Ramsay behind her. She dropped him in the snow at Jon's feet. "He's yours," she said. Jon looked at Ramsay, beaten, pathetic, nothing like the monster they feared. But Jon didn't move. He stepped back. Sansa walked down from the hilltop, slow, calm, steady. "I want to hear him scream," she whispered. Jon nodded. As the last rays of sunlight hit the tower, the gates of Winterfell were shut again. This time, with the right family inside. The North was silent for the first time in years. No more war drums. No more screams. Only snow falling over dead men and broken swords. Winterfell had been taken back. Inside its ancient stone walls, the Stark banner once again flew high above the battlements, flapping in the icy wind. But this was not the Winterfell they had once known. It smelled of blood, of ashes, of memories too painful to speak of. The halls whispered of betrayal, of pain, of ghosts. Jon sat in the great hall, staring into the fire, still in his armor, blood dried on his face. He had won. The North had bent the knee again, but there was no joy in his eyes. Victory felt hollow. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of the men who had died for him. He saw Rickon. He should have saved him. Arya leaned against the doorway, arms folded, watching her brother. "You're thinking too much," she said. "I lost Rickon. You didn't kill him. I brought him to that field. I let Ramsay use him." Arya's voice was like ice. "Ramsay would have used any of us if he had the chance. Rickon ran straight. That's not your fault. That's war." Jon didn't answer. He just stared at the flames. In the dungeons, Ramsay Bolton was chained, bruised, and barely breathing. The Northmen wanted him dead. They wanted to skin him, burn him, hang him. But Sansa, she had other plans. She walked into the cell alone, her steps slow and cruel. Ramsay looked up, his mouth broken, one eye swollen shut. "You're not going to kill me," he whispered. "You need me." To show strength, Sansa kneeled in front of him. "You taught me something," she said coldly. "Sometimes to show real strength, you don't kill someone quickly. You let them live. And you let them rot." Ramsay coughed blood and tried to smile. "You think you've won? They'll never follow you. You're a girl." Sansa stood up. "I'm a Stark. That's more than you ever were." She turned and left the door open behind her. Later that night, the Northern lords gathered in the hall. Fires were lit, meat roasted. Wine flowed, but not much was said. They watched the 3 remaining Stark children at the high table, Jon, Sansa, Arya, and they waited. Lady Lyanna Mormont stood first. "I don't care if he's a bastard. He has the blood of Ned Stark, and he fought for the North while others hid. Jon Snow is our king in the North." One by one, the men rose. "King in the North," they shouted. Jon stood slowly, unsure, eyes wide. Arya whispered, "You earned this." Sansa said nothing. She smiled, but her eyes were unreadable. Later, as the feast wore on, she slipped away and walked into the godswood, alone under the ancient heart tree. The red leaves whispered in the wind. She had everything now, her home, her name, her safety, but not peace. Behind her, someone approached. Littlefinger. He stepped beside her, smiling like he always did, calm, careful, fake. "You've done well," he said. "Queen of Winterfell in all but name." She didn't look at him. "And yet," he continued, "Jon is king. Arya is a hero. And you wait. What do you want, Pettier?" He looked into her eyes. "I want what I've always wanted. Everything." Sansa turned to him, voice sharp as steel. "You'll never have the North. Or me." He leaned closer. "We'll see." She watched him walk away, heart pounding. The North was back in Stark hands. But peace? Peace was a stranger here. Winter wasn't done yet. It was just beginning. Winterfell was alive again, but it wasn't the kind of life filled with laughter or warmth. It was the quiet kind, the kind that felt like walking on a frozen lake, still on the surface, but something dark always moving underneath. The castle had been taken back, the Boltons defeated, but the North was not healed. Not yet. Jon tried to act like a king. He sat in council meetings, listened to the bannermen, made decisions. But every time he looked around the room, he felt like he didn't belong. A bastard raised in shadows, suddenly placed on a throne, built for a true-born Stark. Even if the North called him king, the truth still whispered in his ear, "You are not one of them." Arya had become a ghost in the halls. She rarely slept, rarely smiled. Every night, she trained with her sword, cutting shadows, reliving old names. She still whispered them in the dark, her list. Only a few were left. One of them was closer than anyone thought, and Sansa. Sansa had become something else entirely. No longer a scared girl, no longer anyone's puppet. She walked through Winterfell like a queen without a crown, commanding respect without raising her voice. But the more powerful she grew, the more eyes turned toward her, and not all were friendly. Lord Glover didn't like her giving orders. House Chewin didn't like Arya's cold stare. Whispers spread like frostbite. The lady is too proud, too clever, too dangerous. And in the shadows, Littlefinger listened. He fed those whispers, watered them like seeds. Jon is a good soldier, but too soft. Sansa is a true northerner, a true Stark. Shouldn't she rule? He visited her often, always offering something: advice, flattery, secrets. You could lead them all, he told her one night. Not just Winterfell, the whole North. Even the South, if you wanted. Sansa looked at him, cold and distant. I don't want the South, but you want power, he said. And you're smarter than Jon, stronger than Arya, more fit to rule than anyone else. She said nothing, but he saw the flicker in her eyes. Meanwhile, Arya watched from the shadows. She didn't trust Littlefinger. She followed him, studied him, even snuck into his chambers one night. What she found made her blood run cold: letters, forged scrolls, names of men he had bribed. And one scroll in particular, a message Sansa had written years ago, under duress, begging Robb to bend the knee to Joffrey. Arya confronted her. You wrote this, she said, tossing the scroll on the table. You betrayed our brother. Sansa stared at it, her face pale. You don't understand what they did to me. I understand weakness, Arya snapped. And I see it in you. Careful, Sansa said, stepping forward. You think killing makes you strong? That list of yours? It's just a way to hide the fact you're still scared. The room went silent. Two sisters, both changed by pain, now divided by it. But Jon had no idea this war was brewing in his own home. He had worse news. A raven arrived. It carried a message from Samwell Tarly, one that changed everything. Jon Snow was not Ned Stark's bastard. He was the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. Not a Snow, but a Targaryen? He sat alone in the crypts, rereading the words, heart pounding. Everything he knew was a lie. Everything he was didn't belong to the North. That night, Jon stood before the heart tree, snow falling in his hair. I don't know who I am, he whispered. Behind him, Sansa stepped forward. You're my brother. Jon looked at her, eyes full of guilt. I'm not. She didn't flinch. You fought for us. You bled for us. That makes you more Stark than any name. But even as she said it, something changed in her eyes. If Jon wasn't truly Stark, if he was Targaryen, then maybe the North didn't belong to him after all. Maybe it belonged to her. And Littlefinger was already counting on it. Winter was sinking its teeth deeper into the North. The snow no longer melted. The cold no longer left. It was like the land itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next betrayal. And Winterfell was splitting apart from the inside. Jon had barely slept since reading Sam's Raven. He didn't tell Arya. He didn't tell the lords. Only Sansa knew, and even she had said little, only nodding quietly before leaving him alone with his thoughts. Every time Jon looked into a mirror, he didn't see a Stark. He saw a stranger, a Targaryen. The name burned in his mouth. But the worst part? The North didn't know. The people still called him king in the North. They still knelt before him. But if they learned the truth, that he was a Targaryen, the blood of dragons, would they still follow him? Littlefinger was already weaving his poison. He slipped into the great hall with lords one by one, whispered doubts. Jon has changed, hasn't he? Distant, distracted. He's hiding something. And then he would glance at Sansa and say, but she's always been one of us. Arya watched it all. She saw the glances, the quiet meetings, the way the lords began looking to Sansa for decisions before they looked to Jon. It disgusted her. She didn't trust Sansa. Not anymore. One night, she waited in Sansa's chambers, sitting in the dark like a shadow. When Sansa entered, Arya tossed her the scroll, the one Littlefinger had planted. You used that to climb the ladder, didn't you? Sansa's face turned to stone. I was forced to write that. Arya stood slowly. You always say you were forced, but I wonder, when did you start enjoying it? Be careful, Sansa whispered. This isn't the Riverlands. You're not the only Stark who can play dangerous games. You don't scare me. You should. Arya left the room with fire in her veins. She wanted to end Littlefinger. Right then, right there. But she didn't trust Sansa to be on her side. What if she was working with him? What if they were both planning to push Jon out? But Jon had other problems. A raven arrived from the wall. The Night King had broken through the wall. Eastwatch was gone. The dead were marching. Jon called a council meeting immediately. Sansa sat at the high table. Arya stood in the back, eyes like knives. Littlefinger, as always, stood just close enough to listen, but just far enough to be innocent. Jon spoke with urgency. We need to march south. Every house, every sword. We don't have time for politics. Lord Chewin raised a hand. What about your claim? Rumors say you're not. One of us. Jon's face didn't flinch. I was raised in the North. I bled for the North. If my name makes you question that, leave. But the room had already changed. The loyalty in their eyes had thinned. Whispers had taken root. Sansa stood. Her voice was clear. I trust Jon. We all should. But if anyone doubts him, they'll have to answer to me. It should have helped. But to Arya, it sounded too perfect. Like a performance. Like manipulation. And later that night, she followed Sansa again. This time, to the crypts. Sansa stood at Ned Stark's tomb, alone, whispering. Arya stepped out of the shadows. Planning your next move? Sansa didn't turn. I came here to remember what loyalty used to feel like. Is that what you tell yourself? Sansa turned now, cold in the eyes. You think you're the only one who's changed? I was beaten, broken, used like an object. But I learned something. The world doesn't care how good you are, only how strong you look. And right now, Jon looks weak. Arya stepped closer, her voice quiet but sharp. So you'll take his crown? I'll protect the North. By lying to it? By leading it? There was silence. Only the wind through the crypt. Sansa turned to leave. Arya whispered behind her. You sound like Cersei. Sansa froze, but said nothing. As she disappeared into the darkness, Arya knew what was coming. The real war wasn't just against the dead. It was right here, inside Winterfell. And someone wasn't going to survive it. The dead were marching, but the living were too busy tearing each other apart. Snow covered Winterfell in silence, but inside its walls, tension hung like a blade over every conversation. Loyalty had turned into suspicion. Brotherhood had turned into surveillance. Even Jon felt it, like everyone was watching him with questioning eyes. And behind it all, Littlefinger smiled. He walked the halls with calm confidence, the same way a spider walks across a web it wove itself. Every glance he cast, every whisper he dropped, was pulling Sansa and Arya further apart, and putting Jon right where he wanted him, isolated. But Littlefinger had one weakness. He underestimated wolves. Arya wasn't just watching Sansa anymore. She was watching him. She followed him through hidden tunnels, listened to him meeting with lords in the dark. She watched him hand scrolls to maids, pass coins to raven messengers. But what truly turned her blood cold was what she found in a hidden room beneath the tower, a letter, written in Jon's name, calling for southern lords to support Prince Aegon Targaryen. Arya stared at the forged signature. He was planning to reveal Jon's true parentage, to turn the North against him completely. She didn't show it to Sansa. Not yet. That same night, Jon stood on the walls, looking toward the horizon. Snow blew against his face. Somewhere beyond that frozen line, death was coming. He could feel it, but it was the silence behind him that truly chilled him. Sansa stood there. I spoke with Lord Royce, she said. He wants to know if the rumors are true. They are, and you need to say it publicly. Let them hear it from you. Jon turned slowly. And what happens after that? They stop calling me King in the North? They start calling you Lady of Winterfell? Sansa's jaw tightened. Is that what you think I want? I don't know what to think anymore. The cold between them wasn't just from the snow. It was deeper, older. Wounds from childhood that had never healed. You once said we have to trust each other, she said. I'm trying, Jon. Jon didn't answer. His silence was a wall. And Sansa walked away from it. Meanwhile, Littlefinger made his move. He summoned Lord Glover, Lord Trewyn, and a few minor houses to the solar chamber. The fire crackled, the wine flowed, and his voice, smooth and venomous, spoke what they were already afraid to say. He's not one of us. He was raised in the North, yes, but he's blood of the South. Blood of dragons? Lord Glover frowned. He's still Ned Stark's. No, Littlefinger interrupted. He is Rhaegar Targaryen's, the son of the man who burned your fathers alive. The room went quiet. Then a whisper. Who should lead then? Littlefinger smiled. Sansa Stark, the true-born. The Northern. The one who never left you. Later, Arya followed one of the lords from the meeting. She didn't need to hear the whole thing. She knew enough. She ran straight to Jon's chambers, but he wasn't there. Instead, she found Sansa. Waiting. You need to listen to me, Arya said. But Sansa stood up. No, you need to listen. You think I'm the enemy here? I've done nothing but protect this family. By letting Littlefinger play you like a game piece? You don't know what you're talking about. Arya stepped forward, furious. He's turning them all against Jon, and you're letting him. Sansa's voice was suddenly sharp. Maybe Jon's not the right one to rule. Silence, like a knife. Arya blinked. You really think that? I think, Sansa breathed slowly, struggling. I think the North needs someone it trusts. That's not what you said to Father's statue? Arya whispered. Sansa flinched. You said you wanted loyalty, but you want a crown. Sansa's eyes filled with something Arya hadn't seen in a long time, guilt. But before either could speak, a raven arrived. This one didn't carry lies. It carried truth. From Samwell Tarly, again. And from Ran, the secret wasn't a secret anymore. Jon Snow, son of Rhaegar and Lyanna. The message had reached every lord in the North. Littlefinger's plan was already moving, and the war between siblings was seconds from breaking open. The hall at Winterfell had never been quieter. The air was thick with unspoken words, eyes shifting from one Stark to another. Snow fell outside like ash, and inside, trust was burning to the ground. Jon stood before them, the lords, the bannermen, the northern families, all gathered by urgent request. But he hadn't called this meeting. Sansa had, and beside her stood Arya, cold-faced and unreadable. Whispers had already spread like wildfire through the North. Jon Snow isn't a Stark. He's the son of a Targaryen prince. Some believed it was a lie. Others believed it too easily, as if they were waiting for a reason to doubt him. All eyes now looked to the Lady of Winterfell. Sansa stepped forward, her voice clear, calm, calculated. It's true, she said. Jon is the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and my aunt Lyanna Stark. He is not Ned's bastard. He is not a Snow. His real name is Aegon Targaryen. A wave of gasps broke the silence. Jon didn't speak. He just stared at her, not with anger, not yet, but betrayal. This truth was supposed to come from him. She had taken that choice away. He didn't lie to us, Arya said suddenly, stepping forward. He didn't even know, and it doesn't change what he's done. Lord Trewyn stood. But it changes what he is. A dragon, muttered another. He has no place ruling the North. Sansa raised a hand. I called this meeting not to question Jon, but to protect our house, our family. The North needs strong leadership, not more secrets. And you think that's you? Jon finally spoke, voice low, steady, but laced with fury. You planned this. You turned them against me. I gave them the truth, she said. The same truth you were too afraid to share. Arya looked between them. This isn't what Father would have wanted. Sansa's voice hardened. Father wanted the North to survive. Jon stepped forward. And you'd trade your own brother for that? I'm not trading you, Jon, she said quietly. I'm reminding them who they can trust. The room boiled with tension. Then a voice, quiet but dangerous, broke through. Littlefinger. Perhaps the answer lies in compromise, he said, stepping forward like a vulture circling a dying beast. Jon can march south, join Daenerys if he must. Let Lady Sansa rule the North in his absence, peacefully, with the support of all present. Jon stared at him, then at Sansa. Is that what you want? Sansa didn't speak, and her silence was louder than any answer. That was it. Arya moved. In a flash of shadow and speed, she had crossed the room, her blade drawn. Chaos erupted, chairs scraped, lords shouted, but Arya didn't aim at Sansa. No. She drove the dagger straight into Littlefinger's chest. He gasped, eyes wide, blood soaking his fine clothes. Sansa? Sansa stared at him, frozen. Arya whispered in his ear, You broke this family once. You won't do it again. Littlefinger dropped to the cold stone floor, gurgling his final breath. The room was stunned. And then Arya turned to the gathered lords. We've been fighting the wrong war. She looked to Jon. The dead are coming. And we sit here arguing about crowns and names. Sansa took a step forward, her voice softer now. She's right. I lost myself in fear, in politics. I thought I was doing what was right. Jon met her eyes. You were doing what was safe. And Sansa nodded. But we don't survive by being safe. Outside, horns blew 3 times. A warning from the watchtowers. Jon ran to the battlements. What he saw made his blood freeze. A blizzard in the distance. And within it, shapes. Thousands of them. The dead had reached Winterfell. No more lies. No more time. No more fighting each other. Sansa stood beside him. Arya drew needle. Jon unsheathed Longclaw. The North would either stand united or die together.